What changed with the blacks to make them fight so much and so much violence?
Oh, I've seen people stabbed. I've
Oh,
seen
Lord.
people shot. Baseball bat. I saw somebody done in with a baseball bat.
We were actually committing these same crimes against each other, which is complete craziness, man. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
That said that if that Hunter Biden laptop story
Have any arguments against that right now? And I want to see how it goes.
So you were raised and born in Los Angeles, Southeast LA, right?
No, I wasn't born in LA. I was born in Washington, D.C., but kindergarten through law school, I was in Los Angeles, and it wasn't East LA. That was Hispanic. It was in what we once started calling South Central LA.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't call it that then, and now you're not supposed to because it's got such a bad flavor to it, some people say.
Yeah. Amazing. You went to Crenshaw?
No, I didn't. Crenshaw hadn't even been built then.
Really?
I went supposed to go to manual arts, and then parents got tired of getting broken in. They were trying to do right, so wound up going over toward the Crenshaw area, and I went to Dorsey High.
Oh, I remember.
Went to John Muir Junior High, and then before that, Budlong Avenue Elementary School. So, you know LA, you know where they are. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I first moved to LA in '68 from Alabama, I lived over there near Crenshaw on 6th Avenue. And I remember seeing the kids coming home from school from Dorsey, and every day they would fight all the way from school to home. There would be fights all the way. And I'm like, what the? I had never seen that before. It was amazing to see it. Either the girls were fighting the girls or the boys were fighting the boys, but they would have fights every day. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
It got exciting.
My neighborhood was the same way, man. Southeast DC. Shout out to Southeast DC, man. Things are going crazy over there. But I stayed in front of I'm not gonna say my address, but my address was right the ice cream truck parked right in front of our apartment building every day after school and before school. Right in front of our apartment building. That's where all the kids was before and after school. And it was so many fights. It was crazy. It was like, and then one thing that I used to do is clean up everybody's trash because it was a whole bunch of trash.
Trash. Yeah, I love trash. Yum, yum, trash.
I used to clean up all of the trash for the ice cream truck, and he'll give us something free for doing that, man. So yeah.
So when you were going to school there, were there fights like that at that time?
Well, I can remember one time I came to school. I was in the 8th grade, and somebody that had just graduated from the 9th grade, he was going to manual. He came there, and he was hung by his neck from the flagpole, and his belly had been cut open, and 10 feet between where his body was and the ground, his guts were drooping down, and we had a lot of violence and stuff going on. They had gangs then, Slausons, Vigdale Vikings, businessmen, Bobtown, De La Soul, and such like. But that disappeared in 1965 when they had the uprising in August. All of the frustration, aggression, and tension and stress seemed to evaporate, and people started becoming more congenial toward each other and interested in a bigger picture than had been the case.
When I was growing up, there were no fights. It wasn't fighting one another. And I went to all black school. And I remember one time me and one guy fought over a baseball bat. It was my time to bat up. He thought it was his time. My grandmother and grandparents got on me about that. But I didn't see a lot of fights at all until I went up to Indiana. What changed with the blacks to make them fight so much and so much violence?
Well, 1965, it dropped way down. For an 18-month period between August 1965 and the end of that time period, there were only 2 black-on-black homicides in L.A. And if I recall correctly, that was 2 ladies shot the men in their lives because they thought they were running around on them. The burglaries dropped to 0. The robberies dropped to 0.
Wow.
dropped to zero.
Sheesh.
The assaults dropped down to practically nothing because nobody was mad. But 1968, 69, it started going back up because the FBI, LAPD's SIS unit, and other of these alphabet entities were infiltrating the Black movement, the Hispanic or Brown Beret movement, Native American movement. And there was a lot of treacherous internal stuff going on, and people started turning against each other. And Johnson didn't run, and a lot of minorities felt there was no longer any hope. And Freaky Dick got in, and things started building back up again. Stressed out, Hollywood was going broke, and they got a new crowd in there that was into this thing about we have to deliver a product to an unrepresented audience that will eat it up. Let's go to the lowest denominator, and instead of dealing with uplifting stuff, they started the blaxploitation thing, Black Caesar, Superfly, Foxy Brown, and that kind of stuff. And now I can look at stuff that I see on TV and in the movies that's regular fare, and I get badly offended by it. And other people, oh, they loved it. It was really great, man. Did you check it out? You didn't see so-and-so, You see, they've become so inured to it over the last half century that they have become perfect victims of the propaganda, and they believe it. So when I studied propaganda at UCLA, amongst other things, one of the signs that you have been successful is when your target starts thinking and talking and speaking and ideating in terms of the propaganda you've been feeding them.
Amazing.
So we do.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that you went to school one day and someone was hanging from a tree, guts hanging out.
Oh, from the flagpole out in front of the school.
Was that done by other blacks or other races?
Other blacks.
Y'all hear that, right? It was done by. So we was committing crimes like this against each other way back then when people thought we were all just trying to hide from those people who were committing these heinous crimes. And we were coming together as a community. We were actually committing these same crimes against each other, which is complete craziness, man. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Other blacks. That's amazing. Was it?
We used to have killings all the time. I think by the time I got 15 or so, I'd seen 13 or 14 people killed within 15, 25 yards of where I was standing. It was no big deal.
That's
People
nuts.
died all the time.
Amazing.
And see, I saw somebody got his gut slashed out with a linoleum knife. I saw 5 people by fire when somebody torched a nightclub across the street from where I used to live on Normandy. Oh, I've seen people stabbed. I've seen
Lord.
people shot. Baseball bat. I saw somebody done in with a baseball bat.
I see why he became a judge now. That makes this dude, as he has seen so much. Lisa said, what about 1619? Yeah, that should have brought people together, but it does not. I wonder what it was then. Was it greed? Was it jealousy? Was it just anger? Would it just been a deviant? Was it a lack of God in the home? What was it to make people do those type of things back then?
All kinds of things.
Wow. So being a young person at the time, were you affected by that in any way?
That's true, Quincy.
Looked like part of life. Yes, you were affected. It was like being in a war zone. But my old man had been in the war, so he got decorated. He came back. He'd tell us stories about it, but not all the stories. I didn't find out some things till later, but it was like, be brave. And see, the family on the mother's side was from Tennessee, so I'd been down there, and I know the dynamic of being back in the 50s and what that was about. I remember before we moved to Los Angeles when I was about 5. For a brief time, we were down in Tuskegee, Alabama, where my mother was a librarian with Tuskegee Institute. And I remember we were coming from Tuskegee Institute back to Jackson, Tennessee, where our people lived. And I know we crossed through a suburb that was one of these sundown towns type things, and she handed me her Coca-Cola. She loved these things, one of the small bottles, and she wanted to fish in the glove compartment, and I put the bottle on my knee. I'm sitting in the back seat, and 3 shots were fired at the car we were in. I guess the shooters were trying to shoot the old man who was driving, but they didn't properly lead, so one bullet went through the left rear passenger door, and it shattered the bottle of Coke on my knee. I was worried that my mother was going to pitch a fit, but she was cool. She just said, "Baby, lie down on the floor." But I said, "Are they shooting at us?" Because in those days, a whole lot of black folk had been in the war, and they'd
Facts.
tell stories about that. We'd hang on every word.
Yeah.
So I kept wanting to look because it was exciting to me. And she was cool. We had to repair the car. There were 3 bullet holes in it, but I mean, that was a reality.